So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we are going to be continuing for today the second segment, of course, with the pearls of the Prophet ﷺ. But this time, we were doing the reorientation, I guess, of our intention. But this time, well, it's not enough to just redirect your or your vision, your intention, but it's important to hear what the Prophet ﷺ was telling us, how to reorient, I guess, our intention through our vision. What does it mean to redirect our vision, anyways? So, redirecting our vision, we would see in numerous hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was giving us that inspiration in embracing the purpose that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created before our existence. So he talked a lot about dunya as being a place where it is supposed to be this transition, this bridge that leads to akhirah. But because it's common that people would be living in this dunya and would get carried away with perhaps doing their business, perhaps, or maybe their degrees, or maybe their children, or maybe shopping, their clothes, they're building a house, or whatever it is, and then without them realizing, they can make that from becoming a tool to becoming a goal. And that's very common, where we would see people just getting carried away. If, for example, they're going for a degree, they're just basically forgetting about their deen, because to them, what really matters is a degree at the time. Confusing the goal and the tool is a common thing, where it even later on would perhaps generate into depression. How's that happening? Well, what happens when people would perhaps achieve a certain tool that was perceived by them, or they were focusing all the time that it was the goal, once they would get to achieving that goal slash what really technically was a tool, once they get there and they realize that they didn't reach the level of happiness that they had anticipated, and that they were living, I guess, a delusion, self-manipulation all this time, and that they didn't really get anything, and that it's just another stage in life, that's when they end up really getting into this severe disappointment and perhaps even guilt. So the severe disappointment, a severe guilt, and of course, this disappointment because they had expected so much to happen in their life, but not much happened. It just became another milestone for and another challenge for another coming challenge. So that's why they end up going into depression, which we would see a lot of women when they get married. They would prepare so much for this wedding, this day. To them, it's the happiest day of their life, the day of their marriage, and this man, and etc. They would expect so much from marriage. They would live in a fantasy that it's going to be so romantic, it's going to be so fun, so beautiful, and I'm going to be given all the things that I'm really lurking for: attention, acceptance, love, my own independence, my own freedom, all of that. But once she gets married, she'll discover that freedom, yeah, okay, very nice. But guess what? Now your freedom is right now stuck, and you're basically living not only under what you used to live before under your father's authority. Guess what? Now it's basically your kid's responsibility. In other words, the responsibility that these younger kids basically need is right now becoming the authority, even though you didn't expect that. So you basically changed authorities. So long for freedom. And at the same time, you had anticipated that it was going to be a lot of social acceptance, but you start recognizing later on that no, I'm right now asked to actually give the acceptance or at least give the attention to others. Whatever happened to that? And then, of course, what you had thought was going to be being independent, you would now find yourself, well, I'm not actually independent, but I have a lot more responsibility. So then a lot of these women with this transition, they would go into a moment of depression, 6 months to a year, or perhaps some will say, that's it, marriage is not for me, I'd like to go for a divorce. And then they would go into a divorce. But then they go into another depression after divorce because it's like, uh-oh, what did I do? And perhaps another depression if they didn't get married, and it's so forth. Well, that's why it's important to look at reorienting our vision from seeing dunya as our place of, let's call it goal and purpose, to our tool to get to the purpose. So what does that mean? Well, it means seeing the challenge from an angle of disappointment or an angle of efforts to be invested, to seeing it that it in itself is containing whatever I would invest in terms of energy, in terms of effort, that's basically going to be leading me to Jannah. So what are we doing? We're redirecting our vision. Well, how are we going to do that? How does the Prophet ﷺ explain that that is to be done? That's what the hadith are going to answer, not me. Let's look at the first hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, من كانت الآخرة همه جعل الله غناه في قلبه وجمع له شمله وأتته الدنيا وهي راغمة وما كانت الدنيا همه جعل الله فقره بين عينيه وفرق عليه شمله ولم يأته من الدنيا إلا ما قدر له. Should we read it again? من كانت الآخرة همه جعل الله غناه في قلبه وجمع له شمله وأتته الدنيا وهي راغمة ومن كانت الدنيا همه جعل الله فقره بين عينيه وفرق عليه شمله ولم يأته من الدنيا إلا ما قدر له. رواه الترمذي. الترمذي, and he would always comment غريب, حسن, etc. And he said حديث حسن. ابن ماجه, أحمد, ابن حبان, الطبراني في المعجم الكبير, صححه الألباني. الألباني was a modern scholar, originally from Albania, but lived in Syria. And let's see, what does that mean? What does it? Whoever makes the hereafter his main concern, Allah will place richness in his heart, organize his affairs, and the worlds will come to him, humbled. But whoever makes the world his main concern, Allah will place poverty before his eyes, disorganize his affairs, and he will get nothing of the world except what had been decreed for him. Now, this hadith really stands out. It's one of my favorite hadith. من كانت الآخرة همه جعل الله غناه في قلبه. What is that supposed to be telling us? That if a person's main focus is on al-akhirah, what is il-ham? Il-ham is basically what you're concerned about. Il-ham is what you're troubled, what's troubling you, what's constantly on your mind, what's constantly keeping you busy. That's basically ilham. So if al-akhirah was the main place that's keeping you busy, if al-akhirah was the main area that was basically making you motivated to do certain tasks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, or the Prophet ﷺ says, جَعَلَ اللَّهُ غِنَاهُ فِي قَلْبِهِ. What would they feel? Well, they would feel the ghina. What is al-ghina? Al-ghina is basically richness. We're not talking about richness in terms of, an actual money. But this is talking about غِنَاهُ فِي قَلْبِهِ, where they would recognize that the true value of things is basically supposed to be seen within. The value is not necessarily of how much money and how many items you would combine and you would somehow collect. It's not the collection of items, but السعادة, happiness, or even الغنى and richness, or even the abundance of anything, or the value, the true value is really within. So he said, then جعل الله غناه في قلبه. الغنى, they would feel that they have an abundance of everything. الغنى could also mean that you're not in need of others. So you would feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is enough for you. الغنى could also be honor. وجمع له شمله وأتته الدنيا وهي راغمة. What is جمع له شمله? الشمل, what is الشمل? الشمل can be social, relations, and the shamil could be all the different matters that matter to you. What does that look like? So it could be perhaps your children's school tuition. You're not really sure how this is going to get fixed. Or perhaps your house payments or your car payments. You're just confused. How am I going to fix all of this? Or perhaps bills for your hospital bills, or etc. You're not really sure how you're going to get this fixed. So this is tashattut ash-shaml. When you're just, everything is piling up left and right. I lost my job. I have house payments to cover. Here it is. I got sick because of the anxiety. I tried to get a health insurance. The health insurance didn't approve me. Now I'm basically getting these, I guess, bills piling up right there. And of course, now, hey, the electricity company is basically sending me all of that. Now I'm opening the mail and I'm seeing an eviction notice. Everything's just all of a sudden just piling up. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, wait a minute. Let al-akhirah, kind of like zoom al-akhirah, and you will see dunya zooming out. It wouldn't be your main concern. When you zoom out of the dunya, the matters that are in it will basically appear smaller in your eyes. Why? Because to you, not a problem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of it. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're not going to do your best to figure out your matters, probably get a job and all of those different things, or probably maybe, hey, find someone that would give you a riba-free loan to help you at least survive until you figure yourself out. There's no doubt about that. But just to keep that in mind, the Prophet ﷺ was saying, well, let the hereafter be your main focus, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises you that He will let your dunya matters be covered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How? Well, it's redirecting your vision. وَأَتَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ. And of course, dunya will even come to you, even if the odds, the data don't show that that's how it will come. So what does that mean? Let's say the person is working as a plumber. Plumbers don't necessarily, or at least are not always getting, of course, the best money. It's not like a person is working as a person that works in a company that's selling electronics, or perhaps selling gold, or diamonds and all these different jewelry. Those would be making a lot more money. There's no doubt about that. And of course, the more you would do in services, the less money and the more effort you're going to be putting. Except in America, I guess the story is a little different. People that do contractors and I guess plumbing and electricians and etc. They are actually making good money in the US, but not in the other countries. Why? Because in America, labor is definitely very expensive. Not everyone wants to work in services. So therefore, these people that are working in such services are right now in demand. And of course, that demand is right now determining the value of what you're being paid. It's the demand. So a person that could be a plumber could be making more money than a doctor. Why? Guess what? A plumber can sometimes be making $250 an hour, and a doctor is probably making $42 an hour. So look at the difference. But we would know, of course, that for a plumber, it's basically, of course, in demand. So therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, well, if you're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَتَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring about, if you are a person of akhirah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring about a dunya, will bring about perhaps the customers, perhaps, we definitely don't want more people losing, I guess, their and having plumbing issues. But at the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this world in where مصائب قوم عند قوم فوائد. The calamity of one person is probably, I guess, the good and what's actually beneficial for someone else. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises you by redirecting, or the Prophet by redirecting your vision and making your akhirah be your main place of focus, what you will get is that dunya becoming smaller in your eyes. And in fact, dunya will come to you. In other words, all the different needs, all the different things in dunya, perhaps wealth, perhaps health, perhaps maybe social acceptance to help you with your business or whatever it is, it will come to you راغمة. What is the word راغمة? راغم actually means without it willing to do so. So what does that mean? When you say without it willing to do so, إرغام الشيء is to force it. What does that mean? Well, that means that the data doesn't make sense for your dunya, in your case, to come to you. It doesn't make sense. How is it that this person is getting rich? How is it that they're making money? How is it that things are working out for them? You can get a car, and perhaps an expensive car, but your car keeps breaking down. Even though it's expensive, it just keeps breaking down. Maybe you buy another one and you just, hey, who knows why? But a person can probably get an old car, but then because it's masari, because it's money halal, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might actually make it raghima. It might actually just be where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making everything just work for you, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted everything for salah niyyah. Because your intention is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically bringing dunya coming to you, even if the odds and the logical reasons are not really in, let's say, in the normal sense, in the normal situation, they're not actually adding up to make this as being making sense. Let's go for another one. وَمَنْ كَانَتِ الدُّنْيَا هَمَّهُ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ فَقْرَهُ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ وَفَرَّقَ عَلَيْهِ شَمْلَهُ. And whoever had dunya as their main focus, what would happen? جَعَلَ اللَّهُ فَقْرَهُ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ. What does that mean? Doesn't mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would make poverty in between his eyes. No, it just means that that would be something that they would constantly just be worried about, be their place of paranoia, be their main concern, and to just feel that, how am I going to get there? What's going to happen? And without them realizing, they're just constantly living in that paranoia, جعل الله فقره بين عينيه, where they would be, because they're concerned about dunya, they're constantly worried about poverty, constantly worried about loss, constantly worried about defeat, failure. The list goes on. And without them realizing, فرق عليه شمله. They're trying to get everything in place, but the Prophet ﷺ said, فرق عليه شمله. All their different issues, it just becomes so scattered. They're trying to put everything together, but then everything keeps on getting scattered, and you're just all confused. It's like, how did everything just get so scattered? Why is everything just feeling one piece at a time? So can we look at seeing if somebody is losing everything in their dunya, that, oh, perhaps this is a person that their dunya was just collapsed on them because they were focused on dunya? No, we can't necessarily judge people like that, because that's really within the intention. That's something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would know. Is this person really focused on akhirah, or is this person focused on dunya? All right, let's see. وَلَمْ يَأْتِهِ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَا قُدِّرَ لَهُ. وَلَمْ يَأْتِهِ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. And what does that mean? That the person that had the dunya be their main focus, what they would get out of dunya is really what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anyways had willed for them, had decreed for them. In other words, you're not going to get more than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had already decreed for you. So to imagine that, yes, I'm going to get all of the dunya if I were to work harder, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, well, no, it's not about you working harder, because all of that was predestined. You work in a certain way, smarter, not harder, and at the same time, do your duty, but just remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that had already predestined what your successes, what your achievements are going to be. Let's look at this hadith. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. This hadith is narrated by Muslim. In other words, it's an authentic hadith. والله ما الدنيا في الآخرة إلا مثل ما يجعل أحدكم إصبعه هذه وأشار يحيى بالسبابة في اليم فلينظر بما ترجع. والله ما الدنيا في الآخرة إلا مثل ما يجعل أحدكم إصبعه هذه وأشار يحيى بالسبابة في اليم فلينظر بما ترجع. By Allah, the life of this world compared to the hereafter is nothing more than what one of you would collect when dipping his finger into the sea. Let him see what he brings back. Certainly, this is a figurative statement right there, comparing this world to al-akhirah. In other words, if you were to invest thinking that if I would somehow put in more effort to get from wealth, to get from time in life, to get in successes, that I'll probably get more of dunya. And this is extremely dangerous, because we said it before. It's part of our psychology where we would buy things that we don't need because we would think that it would give us a sense of collecting dunya. It would give us some sense that we're secure, some sense that we're staying here, that we're fine. We've got everything under control. And then we would get more of dunya, even though they would probably not even wear these dresses, not even wear these shoes, not even wear these clothes, not even use all these cars, but it just gives them a sense of security. It just gives them a sense that they're containing this dunya, when in reality, even if you were to count it, they would be living in a house 27 rooms and 35 bathrooms, and you start wondering, well, you're only going to use one room, or you're going to use one bathroom, or you're going to use one car, etc. But then, subhanAllah, it's just a sense of belonging. But the Prophet ﷺ should have actually mentioned this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned in another hadith, maybe I could actually add this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith, and what does he say? When you're looking at the Prophet ﷺ and describing to us that dunya sorry about that, everybody. I'll get to that other hadith, inshallah, in just a bit. Let me go for this one, and we're going to get to the other hadith. Let's look at this hadith. روى الحاكم في المستدرك من حديث سهل قال جبريل عليه السلام قال جاء جبريل عليه السلام إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال يا محمد عش ما شئت فإنك ميت وأحبب من شئت فإنك مفارقه واعمل ما شئت فإنك مجزي به واعلم أن شرف المؤمن قيامه بالليل وعزه استغناؤه عن الناس. Jibreel alayhi salam comes to the Prophet sallam, and he says, Ya Muhammad, O Muhammad, live for as long as you live. You'll eventually die. And love whomever you love, for one day you will separate from them. وَاعْمَلْ مَا شِئْتَ فَإِنَّكَ مَجْزِيٌّ بِهِ. And do whatever you wish, for at the end you will be held accountable for it. وَاعْلَمْ, and know that sharaf al-mu'min, the honor of a believer, is doing qiyam al-layl throughout the night. وَعِزُّهُ اسْتِغْنَاؤُهُ عَنِ النَّاسِ. And a person's honor is in self-sufficiency from people. In other words, you would be independent and not need for people not to fund you, not to perhaps help you in any way. That's when you would find honor. But as long as you're dependent on others, you're going to find yourself really disregarded and certainly not given the respect that you deserve. But let's look at this one. Ya Muhammad, ish ma shi't. O Muhammad, live for as long as you live. فَإِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ. What is that? Redirecting your vision. On what? That don't look at your life and just looking at your birthdays and looking at your life like you're focused there. But فَإِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ. But recognize that you're eventually going to be dying. In other words, what is he teaching him? You know, this hadith, Jibreel alayhi salam is teaching the Prophet sallam to redirect the focus. Don't look at this dunya as your place of focus. So he said, live as long as you live, because you're going to die eventually. وَأَحْبِبْ مَنْ شِئْتَ. And of course, especially as women, we live in, I guess, in a relationship with those that we would love. We're always looking at those that we would love. We always want to be connected to them because they give us a sense of security. They give us a sense of power. And the list goes on and on. But Jibreel alayhi salam was teaching the Prophet sallam, وَأَحْبِبْ مَنْ شِئْتَ فَإِنَّكَ مُفَارِقُ. Just recognize that this life is not a life of containment, even if it's a friend. even if it's a loved one. One day, they will die. فَإِنَّكَ مُفَارِقُ. You will one day, for sure, depart them. One day, they're not going to be around anymore. Who's going to be around? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be around. وَعْمَلْ مَا شِئْتَ فَإِنَّكَ مَجْزِيٌ بِهِ. There's an energy that you would invest. An energy that you might invest in. So here, Jibreel alayhi salam is telling him, I want you to look into the energy and what you're really investing in. وَعْمَلْ مَا شِئْتَ. And do whatever you want. Because at the end, فَإِنَّكَ مَجْزِيٌ بِهِ. You're going to be held accountable. And that's what matters. If you do recognize that you're going to be held accountable, فَإِنَّكَ مَجْزِيٌ بِهِ, then you're going to take in consideration what you're doing. You're going to realize that the energy that you invest in, since I'm going to be held accountable for it, is supposed to be my area of focus. فَإِنَّكَ مَجْزِيٌ بِهِ. That's supposed to be your area of focus, your area of understanding that one day you're going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are you going to do? And what is this energy going to look like when you would be right before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ شَرَفَ الْمُؤْمِنِ قِيَامُهُ بِاللَّيْلِ. What is sharaf al-mu'min? I want you to look at the word sharaf and the word al-izz. What's the difference between sharaf and al-izz? Let's kind of highlight that. Here's al-sharaf and here's al-izz. Al-sharaf is honor. Al-sharaf is also the person's rank, appearance. That's a sharaf. The way that you would appear in a certain rank. Al-izz is basically the privilege that you would get as a result of your rank. The privilege. So what are we looking at? عزه استغناؤه عن الناس. شرف المؤمن, the rank before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. شرف المؤمن قيامه بالليل. You really want a high rank? Get up during the night and do qiyam al-layl. Take a moment. But wait a minute, how is that supposed to be sharaf? How is qiyam al-layl supposed to be sharaf? How? Well, when a person, you were to wake up at night, everyone is asleep. Only the elite would stand out amongst the many and do something that other people are not doing. That's why it would be sharaf. Oh, everyone else is just sleeping. Everyone else is, I guess, engaging in doing, whether it's watching a movie or whether it's, who knows what they're doing. But a sharaf would be that you're the only one to be in this position. So qiyam al-layl would be a position. It's like you're chosen, you're anointed, you were selected amongst the very few to be within this level that is considered as an elite level. That's why it's called sharaf. Al-izz استغناؤه عن الناس. What is al-izz? Al-izz is more to get a privilege. But what privilege? استغناؤه عن الناس. This alif sin ta. What does it mean? Al-alif sin and the ta would more to seek something. So what is this person really seeking? استغناؤه عن الناس. And what they're seeking is to be independent from people. عزه استغناؤه عن الناس. Their pride, or at least their privilege, is really within their independence. So they don't need people to probably hire them. No, they'll be the ones that would make the business. They're not looking for people to solve their problems. No, they would educate themselves in order to know more and get the experience, how they could actually get those problems solved. They don't ask people for help. I mean, of course, there is another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, a man came to him and he said, how do I make people love me? And he said, don't ask anybody for any favor. So even when he was on a horse, we're talking about Arabian horses, even if his, I guess, stick or whatever he was holding, even if it fell on the ground, he would just go off the horse in order to pick it up himself. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ told him that in order to be loved, don't ask anybody for any favor. Don't ask for any, not asking for any favor is basically going to give you that independence. It's going to give you that honor, and therefore, by not needing people to be the ones to do you the favor. So what do? You basically get yourself independent, whether it means education, getting the money, getting the experience. Now, this is extremely important. By getting the experience, you're capable of probably doing the simplest things. Even if we're talking about plumbing, electricity, I don't know, fixing your car, whatever it is, as much as you can. Stay away from you needing people to, of course, you yourself doing the job. Let's continue with this. Oh, we actually passed the time. Okay, inshallah, that's...
I just have one question. What about asking your kids for help?
So there's a difference, Noura. There's a difference between asking the kids for help and between giving them the chores, okay? So let the kids understand, this is important, let the kids understand that no, that this is a chore that they have to do and not necessarily a chore that they're doing for you. There's a difference. Because if they would feel that this is a chore and a task they're doing for you, then that's going to give them a sense of entitlement. That anyways, it's your job to do. I'm just here doing it for you. So no, make it clear to them. No, you're not entitled. You live here. You need to pick up the trash because we are all family supporting one another in making this place one clean, in making this place healthy, making this place basically tidy, and all these different things in order to make this place a place that is good for you to live in. You live in here? Yes, you do. Well, good. Don't think you're entitled, and don't think that your bathrooms are supposed to be cleaned by your mom. No, you're going to invest in cleaning the bathroom. Pick up your own trash. Pick up your own laundry. You know what? You ate, put it in the dishes, and don't think that someone's going to be washing the dishes for you. You're not entitled. You have to invest in making this place a place that you're capable of living in, just like everyone else. So that's not asking them to do you a job, that's asking them to do their job.
Yeah, that's true. Subhanallah. Jazakallah khair.
Yep. This is extremely important, Noura, because this is a mistake that many times people, especially I would say maybe the Arabi and Somali culture in particular, that they always, I guess, raise their children, especially boys, making them think that they're entitled and that we're supposed to be, the women are supposed to be the maids for them. And they end up really becoming lazy men. And this is very common, Arabi and Somali in particular. You agree with me, Zamzam?
Yes, Dr. Aisha, 100%.
Yep. And this is so common. And that's why we would see a lot of men, believe it or not, I've had, unfortunately, a number of different people actually tell me that a lot of Somali men here in Malaysia are actually, unfortunately, alcoholics. Why? This is appalling. Why? I mean, this isn't necessarily, of course, attacking Somalis whatsoever, but this is to say, and guess who's working? The women are basically working as maids. Why are the women working as maids and Hadra Janabo just sitting down, really waiting for the woman to work as a maid and bring in the money, and he's basically sitting at the coffee shop and drinking and thinking that he's entitled? And this is a problem. This is a problem if we're going to be raising children thinking that, oh, I'm supposed to be there doing everything for you, and then we're just making sure that they're feeling happy. It's like, no, there's no way that you can get happy unless you invest. عزه استغناؤه عن الناس. In order to get your izzah, well, you need to make sure that تستغني عن الناس, you become independent. Get a job, get your degree to get, let's call it a decent job, get to school. Right now, to be mature is to actually start from an early childhood, having these good grades in order to basically create a good GPA. Perhaps when you get to college, they're going to look at your grades and you can probably get a good degree and probably build in this istighna' an الناس, and you're going to be independent. And once you're independent from people, that's when you would be capable of becoming a person that is a servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not a servant to people. Because you would be risking your deen. You would be risking your deen if you depended on others without you realizing. If you don't say this fatwa, you don't do this, I'm going to basically make you lose your job or whatever it is. And what happens? This person becomes having no choice. Then they will give themselves the fatwa that, okay, I'm right now coerced to do this. Like, how did you get yourself coerced? You got yourself coerced because you were not taking the necessary means to basically be dependent. If you weren't taking the necessary means to basically be independent, what are you going to have? Well, you're going to have that your freedom is going to be sanctioned. Your freedom is going to be sanctioned when you didn't work towards educating yourself, giving yourself, I guess, the right experience and so forth. And then the person becomes what? Well, they become dependent on others and therefore jeopardizing and risking their deen because other people would abuse that, hey, if you want to do it this way, well, here's what you have to give up on your principles, because our job and our unemployment is actually needing this. Perhaps a woman, in order for you to get the right employment, we need you to reduce her hijab. We need you to speak in a certain way in order to attract customers. And without you realizing, poverty, لو كان الفقر رجلا لقتلته أو لقتلته. If poverty was a man, I would have killed him. What was that? It was attributed to Ali ibn Abi Talib, not a hadith sahih, but in the end, to look at helping our children even understand what it means to have izzah, what it means to have honor, this is extremely important. So this is it. Inshallah, subhanakallah wa bihamdik, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Inshallah, we'll work on more ahadith. I actually prepared a lot of ahadith. So inshallah, that's the day after tomorrow, inshallah. So stay tuned. And at the same time, right?